All right, folks, welcome into another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can find Bluff City Media on Twitter at Bluff City _media. We are, of course, part of the Bluff City Media Network. And you can find us on Facebook as well. Just search 901 Soccer, we'll pop right up. Just search Bluff City Media, we'll pop right up. And of course, if you're watching this, you're watching it on YouTube, but please make sure to like the video, please comment on the video, and please subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Now, this one I think probably tonight is just going to be short and sweet. It's the 2025 Summer of Soccer recap. Now that the Club World Cup is officially done and dusted, and the Gold Cup is officially done and dusted, time to kind of take stock and see what we think went well, what we think didn't go well, and what that all means for the World Cup next year, because that is what all of this is with an eye towards, the World Cup here in the U.S. next year. There were some things that I think were fantastic, and some things that I think probably need work or we don't need to see at all. And judging by the way things go, my opinion doesn't really matter or mean a whole lot to the powers that be, and that's okay. But I'm going to put it out there because I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who agrees with me, and that's what I'm going to latch on to. So, can we say that the 2025 Summer of Soccer was a success? I think we can. It could have and probably should have been better than it was. The Club World Cup, I think, was a resounding success, and it had its growing pains, and that's fine. And the Gold Cup, down year for the Gold Cup, but when the U.S. men's national team is stinking up the joint, that's to be expected, although they've been stinking up the joint for quite some time, and the Gold Cup 2 years ago far outdrew the Gold Cup this year, so you can make of that what you will. Where do we want to go from here? Like I said, I think that this Summer of Soccer was a success. We had a Summer of Soccer last year too. Probably the best Summer of Soccer we've had since 2016. 2016, of course, you had the Euros going on in France and Copa America Centenario here in the U.S. The U.S. actually made it out of the group at that Copa America, went to the semifinals. But the ticket sales and the attendance for that particular tournament were not nearly as high as everybody kind of expected, because the ability to actually have the tournament got thrown into doubt in 2015 because of all of the U.S. Department of Justice raids and Swiss authority raids on FIFA and some of its key figures. So last year we did have a very successful Summer of Soccer. Euros in Germany on TV during the day, Copa America here at night, and then also you had both U.S. teams at the Olympics in Paris. So Copa America, big crowds all the way around. There were some issues, though, some crowd issues. We'll talk more about that, I guess, when we get to the Club World Cup. But then the U.S. stunk up the joint, shocker. But you also had the U.S. women win gold at the Olympics in Paris, and you had the U.S. U23 men's team qualifying for the first time since 2008 and getting out of the group for the first time since 2000. So they beat who they were supposed to beat, and they lost to who they were supposed to lose to. Would I have preferred a much stronger showing in the quarterfinals against Morocco? Yeah. But all in all, nothing to hang your head about. Now you fast forward to this year. There's no Euros, no Olympics. You've got the Club World Cup here in the U.S. And overall, I think it was a pretty good event. Average attendance was just under 40,000 a game, 39,547. Over 2 million people attended the 63 games. Everything, with two exceptions, was east of the Mississippi River, the two exceptions being Seattle and L.A. And Seattle had already qualified, so you were going to need a travel partner. So why not put L.A.? Because if you're a European, the only two American cities that you know of are New York and L.A., and if you're South American, you throw in Miami. Chicago, D.C., Dallas, San Fran, Atlanta, Memphis, Nashville, Philly, KC, San Antonio, Houston. No, nobody outside of this country knows about those cities. If you're from Europe, the only 2 American cities you know are New York and LA. And if you're from South America, you know 3 American cities: New York, LA, and Miami. So it was probably the easiest money on the board that when you're looking for a travel partner for Seattle, you're going to pick LA. Now, that being said, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This tournament had some teething problems, but I think it was a very successful event. I had a blast with it. I really did. It certainly helped that I got to cover 3 of those games in person, all in Nashville. You had LAFC and Esperance de Tunis, which the game itself wasn't super great, but the Tunisian fans did put on a show. And then you had Boca Juniors against Auckland City. And the Boca Juniors fans, and we'll talk more about this in a second, but Boca Juniors fans stole the show in Nashville. You can check out the piece I wrote about that over at Beyond the 90. And for Boca Juniors, probably the biggest club in Argentina and maybe in all of South America, to get a draw against a semi-professional team from New Zealand, there were not a lot of happy Boca Juniors reporters in that post-game press conference. And I've lived the human experience enough, and I've been in enough post-game press conferences that even though I don't speak Spanish, I could tell that was a hostile press conference. There were some very angry Boca Juniors media people in there. I didn't understand, but maybe 2 or 3 words here or there. But you could. I don't think you needed to speak the language to understand what was going on in that press conference. Like at a U.S. soccer press conference, they hand you your microphone, you say, "Hey, I'm so and so," and you ask a 10-word question. Here with Boca Juniors, different ballgame. They would introduce themselves with very polite greeting, and then just go like go. And then at the end, gracias. I mean, it was like a 5-minute question. And I'm pretty sure one dude, I don't know what his name was. I don't know what his outlet was. But I gleaned that essentially the essence of his question was, you're Boca Juniors, and why can't you beat a semi-professional team? Which is a fair question. I think the coach's answer was something along the lines of Boca is Boca. And yes, I would agree with that, but Boca is Boca for a reason, and draws against semi-professional teams from non-soccer countries not going to go over well. So that was incredible. The Boca Juniors fans, different level, different breed, man. Like we want to talk about in the SEC, it just means more. This was different. Wild. There was a lightning delay. Did not care about the lightning delay. They were like, "Get out on the concourse," and they said, "Not happening." And they did their Dale Boca chant, which was a lot of fun. Then the third game 2 days later was Al Hilal from Saudi Arabia against Pachuca from Mexico. Very interesting that I've now covered a game involving Pachuca twice, which isn't a lot, but it's odd that it's been Pachuca twice. Obviously, they came here to Memphis and played 901 FC in 2019. And that one I actually got to sit outside in the little media tribune area, and it was loud. It was hot, but it was loud. So that was a very cool experience. But those 3 games aside, I think we touched on it with the Boca fans, but this tournament would have been a spectacular embarrassment if not for the South American fans. Those guys brought it all game, every game, for a lot of games. River Plate, Boca from Argentina, and then you had Fluminense, Palmeiras, and Botafogo from Brazil. Those 5 teams probably responsible for the bulk of the fans. Then, of course, you had Inter Miami. So Messi draws wherever he goes, although I will say their game against Porto and Atlanta was sparsely attended. And that's one thing. Atlanta, one of the big disappointments of this tournament in terms of host cities. Philadelphia, I think, was a big winner. Miami, I think, was a big winner. And New York, I mean, you got both the semifinals and the final, and those both were packed houses. And it's New York, so whether they do or they don't do well, it doesn't really matter because they're New York, and they're always going to get the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, they showed out well for the final 3 games of the tournament, at least. Atlanta, big disappointment. LA, hit or miss. Seattle was kind of a disappointment. The Sounders only drew 30,000 for that first game against Botafogo, which, like, Seattle Sounders. So this is maybe a topic for a different episode, but what has happened to Seattle Sounders support post-COVID? I think the inability or the unwillingness to step out their own front door without getting renditioned for not wearing a mask or having a shot, I think probably broke their brains. And like post-COVID, they've had like 3 crowds of 40,000 or more people, and they used to draw 45 on the regular. Something there, and it's not like they stink. They won a CONCACAF Champions League, and I'm pretty sure somewhere in there they've won another MLS Cup. So, I mean, you're hosting 3 Club World Cup games, and the first one you barely cracked 30. So that was really disappointing. But it was the South American fans that really made this tournament what it was. And then, of course, you get to the knockout rounds of the competitions. And as fun as some of the upsets were in the early part of the tournament, the cream really rose to the top. When on one side of the bracket, you've got PSG, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and Borussia Dortmund. And then on the other side, you've got Chelsea and Manchester City. Like, it was really fun dunking on the European teams, and we'll talk more about them in a minute. It was really fun dunking on the European teams early on in the tournament for not being able to deal with the conditions and losing to teams. And, of course, the line that was parroted at the beginning of the competition was, well, it's not the Champions League, so we don't really care about this. Like, we just got done, having to play a season of soccer, so we can't be bothered to take this tournament seriously. And then, so it was fun to make fun of. It's like with the SEC in football, where anytime they would lose a New Year's Six bowl game, it was because, we're the SEC, so we should have been in the playoff or playing for the national championship, so we can't be bothered to take this super prestigious bowl event seriously. No, it's just you lost, and you were creating fake excuses. Such was the case for teams like Atletico Madrid at this competition. At lesser extent, Manchester City. But you got to the late knockout rounds, and I didn't want to live in this world where I had talked all this smack about the European teams not being able to cut it and them being surprised that there's other clubs in the world that actually play soccer and play it well. And I did not want to live in a world where you got further and further into the knockout rounds and it was all European teams. But that's pretty much what happened. You had 5 of the final 8 teams were European, 3 of the 4 semifinalists, and both of the finalists. So that was I had to tuck in and eat some humble pie there. But so the crowds, hit or miss, for the first edition of this tournament, for the lack of marketing that there was, and that's not a problem that was unique to this tournament, and that's not a problem that is unique to soccer. I guess I don't understand why nobody wants to market their teams or their leagues anymore, but apparently just nobody feels the need to do that, least of all in this city. But when you have teams like Mamelodi Sundowns or Wydad AC or Ulsan HD, Auckland City, you're going to draw some poor crowds. And I think on the front end, FIFA knew that had the potential to be a problem because everybody was yelling and screaming, so these games need to be played in soccer-specific stadiums. Well, yes, that's why they had 3 or 4 soccer-specific stadiums as venues. Nashville, D.C., Cincinnati, and one in Orlando. So they tried, but the reward for full stadiums far outweighed the risk of empty stadiums. But again, you're going to have that. There's not many people outside of South Africa that care about the Mamelodi Sundowns, and there's not too many people outside of South Korea that care about Ulsan HD, and that's okay. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be here, but that means that there's probably going to be a smaller crowd. That's fine. Nearly 40,000 people a game for a tournament that just got dreamed up a year or so ago and had a lot of teams that a lot of people weren't familiar with next to no. The only marketing that they did for the tournament was Gianni Infantino running around waving a big giant trophy, which is gaudy and a monstrosity, which perfectly fit this tournament. This tournament is what it is. It's. I don't think it needs to be an every year thing. Every 4 years, I'm fine with. I mean, it was fun to see clubs from different continents play each other in a tournament that meant something. And I'm sorry, the old Club World Cup didn't mean like this one meant. One of the frustrating things about this tournament, I talked about the Europeans not being able to deal with the elements. They complained about everything. My God. The manager, Enzo, for the manager for Chelsea, every time somebody put a microphone in front of that dude's face, he had a complaint about something. Oh, the weather. Oh, it rained. Oh, there was lightning. Oh, there was a delay. Oh, the field was too hard. Oh, the field was too soft. Oh, the field this. Oh, the food that. Oh, blah, blah. Stop. Shut up. I didn't hear the South Americans complaining about the weather. I didn't hear the South Americans complaining about the field. I didn't hear the teams from Asia or Africa or the CONCACAF teams complaining about any of this. Just the European teams. Again, it comes back to they think their shit doesn't stink and that they're the only clubs in the world that care about the game and are good at it. It was an unwelcome surprise to them to see that a tournament was being staged in the United States. I noticed they don't have any problem coming to the United States for their preseason tours to charge $300 a ticket to go sit at the top of an 85,000 seat stadium. But man, this official competition, man, like we don't have a break and the field's this and the weather that and blah, 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 and the kickoff times. And, oh no, we had to have a water break halfway between the half. Cry, cry, cry. You bitches. That's what they were. They were bitches. The entirety of this tournament complaining about every little thing. So it turned into this whole thing. Oh, does the World Cup need to be next year? Oh, is the World Cup going to be a flop next year? No. Shut up. All of you. No. No, 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 no. That's not how this is going to work. Can somebody tell me the last time when the playing field was an issue at a World Cup? Probably 1986. It was too hot. You played a World Cup literally in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil in 2014. Nobody had a problem with hydration breaks in the 30th minute at that tournament. There's a delay. Like, okay, both teams are dealing with the delay, right? It is not FIFA's fault. It is not the United States' fault. It is not Orlando's fault that there was lightning in the area of Camping World Stadium, and it's not their fault that you couldn't come back out, Chelsea, and defend for the final 6 minutes of the game. And I understand they went on to win the whole thing, but Enzo went on this whole big diatribe crying about having a 2-hour delay, which I will fully and readily admit is probably irritating as hell and probably sucks. Are the odds of lightning actually striking the field at Camping World Stadium low? Yes, they are. Are the odds 0? No, they are not. There were 6 minutes left in the game. I don't want to hear how unfair it is when both teams had to sit through that weather delay. It is not anybody's fault but your own that you could not defend for 6 more minutes. So nobody can control the weather. Some of the games will be played indoors. I also wonder if anybody's going to have these same complaints about the 3 stadiums in Mexico. What it all boils down to is these are hotshot, to use Bruce Arena's word, hotshot European teams, and that didn't work out so well for Bruce a couple of days later. these hotshot European teams think they're too good to come play games in the United States. That's what it boils down to. And we've got a long way to go to match the pedigree and stature of European soccer, and I don't know if we'll ever get there. But to sit here and just complain about every little thing, baseless and stupid, simply because it's in the U.S., that's asinine, and y'all can go pound it up your ass. Just shut up. Spare me. God, it was so annoying. I had non-soccer people text me, "Oh, this is saying this tournament's not going so well." No, these are just soft, whiny little European bitches. You had the Borussia Dortmund players hanging out in the lot, watching the game on TV in the locker room because it was 82 degrees. What are we doing? They wouldn't last 5 minutes refereeing at a regional event. I had a fourth official assignment in Baton Rouge in 2023 in June. It was 98 degrees at 7 o'clock in the morning. We played. These were kids. These were not highly compensated, top-level European soccer players. You are paid more money than ever. Shut up and play the game. It is not that hard. Ugh. That to me was the most irritating part of this tournament. The most irritating part of the tournament was Europeans crying about everything. The second most irritating thing, and before we move on, this is something that just occurred to me here a few moments ago. One of the things that has always driven me crazy about the way soccer is discussed and covered, or not covered in this country, is that this weird need to Americanize it. Well, who is the LeBron James of soccer? Who is the Tom Brady of soccer? If our best athletes played soccer, they shouldn't allow it to end in ties. What stupid stuff like that, right? That's insanely frustrating. So when Americans try to Americanize soccer, that's one thing. Watching FIFA do what they think Americanizing is to soccer was like a million times worse. It was so cringeworthy. The walkouts at the games, right? Soccer's had the same walkout for 100 years. Players, you walk out together. Yeah, thank you very much. Everybody take your picture. If it's an international game, you do the anthem, move on down the road, do the coin toss. This whole each player starting at blah, 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 João Pedro, or blah, 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 Lionel Messi, and then having them walk out through smoke and fire and don't need it. Having that, and each player having like a person to walk with a big giant flag with the Club World Cup logo on it, the big giant sparkly FIFA sign, just do a normal walkout. Then you had, specifically at the games in New York, you had the Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy, whose name escapes me. In the Chelsea corner, blah, 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 in the right corner, like, oh, let's get ready to rumble. No, don't need it. Don't need it. Entirely unnecessary. Do the coin toss, blow the whistle, start the game. Then the halftime show. Now, I had forgotten there was going to be a halftime show until somebody texted me about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's a halftime show. Oh, well, like I had walked away from my laptop because I don't care. Like, I don't. Most of the halftime analysis is absolutely meaningless drivel. So I didn't care. But I'm even more glad that I stepped away now because didn't care nothing about a halftime show. So all of those things I'm hoping and praying are just for this tournament because they needed to like spice it up. If any or all of those things are at the World Cup next year, then, what happened to the game I love, will officially be cooked because that's all terrible stuff. And here's the thing, like everybody wanted to get mad, like because the tournament's in the US and these are American things. These aren't really American things. Like nobody does let's get ready to rumble. That nobody cared about let's get ready to rumble 20 years ago. Like that has gone. This is what other people think American sporting culture is. And they're trying, like, it's like non-Americans trying to Americanize at a game. And it's very bizarre. The soccer fans didn't like it. The non-soccer American people didn't like it either. Like, I don't think anybody liked all of this weird stuff. And we just kind of gritted our teeth and got through it. I'm certainly hoping that is not part of the World Cup next year. Next up, you had the Gold Cup. And the Gold Cup, it's every 2 years. There's really not going to be a whole lot to say about this Gold Cup because it is every 2 years. But it was going on at the same time as the Club World Cup. So you had soccer being played in a lot of different places with a lot of people going to it. Unfortunately, this Gold Cup, because the U.S. men's national team stinks and Mexico had been stinking, they too got grouped. They got grouped at the World Cup, and then they got grouped at Copa America last year. So they weren't real popular with their fans. But, U.S. soccer loves to touch their nuts about being kings of CONCACAF, like that's like an accomplishment. Mexico's the kings of CONCACAF now. They've won the last 2 Gold Cups, and they won the last Nations League. So maybe we can tap the brakes with this stupid kings of CONCACAF bullshit and worry about just playing games and winning them and not showing our ass at a home World Cup next year. But because Mexico the fans had been mad at the team and the federation, their group stage attendance was concerningly low. And of course, the U.S. men's national team, I wrote a piece for Beyond the 90 after the game in Nashville that the U.S. men's national team is a disgrace. And they didn't really do anything to change they changed they're not a disgrace, but they still stink. They did get to the goal. They won all 3 group stage games at the Gold Cup, and they did get to the final. And the goal for the Gold Cup for the U.S. should always be get to the final. And if you play Mexico, whatever happens, happens. It sucks to lose, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't hurt the program, I don't think. Although everything this year, again, is viewed through the prism of World Cup is at home next year. We have 8 games between now and then. And so beating Mexico in a cup final would have gone a long way towards getting a lot more people fired up for the World Cup next year. But that didn't happen. My hope is that enough people took enough interest in it this summer that the starting point for next year is higher than it otherwise would have been. But, the U.S. drew 12,000 in an 18,000 seat stadium in San Jose. They drew 11,000 in a 20,000 seat stadium in Austin. They drew 22,000 in an 80,000 seat stadium in Arlington. They were the away team in a soccer stadium in St. Louis, which one of the big reasons U.S. soccer loves playing games in soccer-specific stadiums is so that you can ensure home field advantage. Now, granted, this is a CONCACAF event, not a U.S. soccer event, and they never tire of telling you that. But I find the notion that U.S. soccer is unable to do anything to get more people into CONCACAF-controlled events implausible. And then, of course, you play Mexico in an NFL stadium for one reason, to get all the Mexico fans in there. And again, that's a CONCACAF thing and not a U.S. soccer thing. Though, let's not pretend that U.S. soccer, when they need money, doesn't go and schedule friendly every year for 3 straight years in an NFL stadium. It's like in Goodfellas, when Henry says, whenever we needed money, we'd rob the airport. When U.S. soccer, you can always tell when U.S. soccer thinks they need money because they schedule a friendly against Mexico in an NFL stadium. Because that is a U.S. soccer-controlled event, but Mexico's the home team. Now, to their credit, they haven't had to do one of those, but maybe once in the last 6 years. But hey, they're happy to make $300 a ticket and off of 8,000 people, then instead of $50 a ticket off of 30,000 people. But what do I know? Why would you want more people at your games? I can't wrap my mind around why you would want that. But I have said it before, and I will say it again. I do not think U.S. soccer is aware of how unpopular they are with the American soccer fan and how much of a complete and total non-factor they are to the average American sports fan. When you never venture outside of your little bubble, you never have to experience a reality check, because re-entry into society is scary as all hell, because they are about as popular as Toledo football. That's what U.S. soccer is. U.S. soccer is Toledo football. Attendance-wise, TV ratings-wise, airtime on ESPN, all of it. They're a MAC football team, is what U.S. soccer is. But every single U.S. soccer employee, be it from the top on down, the executives, the board, the media relations people, the people handing me my press pass when I walk into the stadium, the players, the coaches, the 35 assistant coaches and trainers that they have, arrogant to a man, incredibly arrogant. The strut and the bounce when they walk. This right here. Like they pop their neck. It's like in the referee world, when you have a referee like that who acts like he's better than everybody else and goes around there and struts and pops and call it peacocking. Call it a peacock referee. That's everybody at U.S. Soccer. They're peacocks. Except they don't have a nice fancy tail to show off. They've got like a rat tail. Normally the rats scurry. U.S. Soccer struts. But there are 4 more U.S. men's national team games on the schedule. Hooray. We got 2 friendlies in September and 2 friendlies in October. The 2 in September are at Red Bull Arena, now known, the artist formerly known as Red Bull Arena, which is now Sports Illustrated Stadium. Sports Illustrated can't actually afford to pay writers and uses AI to write a lot of their stuff, but can pay to sponsor a soccer stadium. Okay. So you get South Korea at the artist formerly known as Red Bull Arena, and then you get Japan in Columbus, because apparently American soccer fans can only be found in Ohio and Austin, Texas. And October, we get another game in Austin. That's 2 this year. From July of 2021 to October of 2025, the U.S. men's national team will have played 6 games in Austin, Texas. And yet, U.S. Soccer has the balls to tell us that their mission is to grow the game and that they want to make every U.S. men's national home game a huge event leading up to the World Cup. To me, huge event means playing in a stadium larger than 20,000 seats. And it also means going somewhere where you haven't already been 5 times in the last 3 years. But hey, what the hell do I know? I'm just a hater. God, I would love to see what internal communications they have about me up there. I could retire a happy man. That would be so funny. I guarantee you they've got like a Slack or a Discord or something where every time I put something up, they just start seething and raging. Like, I know they hate me up there, which is incredible. You're U.S. Soccer and you worry about a random ass dude in South Haven, Mississippi. That's hilarious to me. But so that's, I think, probably going to do it for us here tonight. Overall, Summer of Soccer 2025, I can't quite say resounding success, but I would say a success. Stuff to work on. I forgot to mention this earlier. One of the big problems that you had at Copa America last year was crowd control. Total non-factor at Club World Cup this year. And one of the big reasons for that is at Copa America, specifically the final, you could just walk right up to the gate before you had to scan your ticket. So you ended up with a potential crush situation, not unlike what happened at Hillsborough in the 80s. Mercifully, 90 people did not die at Copa America, but it was a wild scene of people passing out with heat exhaustion, busting through air vents, breaking down gates. Like, it was a wild scene. Officially, they said the attendance was 65,300. I think it was probably closer to 70. But a lot of ticketless fans showed up. Not a problem. From my personal experience at Geodis Park in Nashville, they had, like, to scan your ticket was like way away from the stadium. So you were not getting through to anywhere near the stadium unless you had a ticket. And they seemed to me to be properly staffed and prepared for a lot more people than ended up showing up. So I don't think that, because that was a big talking point after Copa America last year. It was like, is the U.S. ready to host the World Cup? Different ballgame. Whatever you think of FIFA and their ways, they know how to run an event, and it wasn't flawless or seamless, but there were very few flaws and there were very few seams, and crowd control was not at all any kind of a problem. Which is a big step up from Copa America last year and should put a lot of people's minds at ease for next year. But that being said, that is going to do it here tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can find Bluff City Media on Twitter at Bluff City_media. Over on Facebook, it's just 901 Soccer and it's Bluff City Media. And of course, if you're watching this, please make sure to like the video, comment on the video, and subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. And probably the next time we talk, it'll be getting close to Memphis Tigers soccer season. So hopefully when those schedules get released, we will have something to share with you.